Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. We have an incredibly diverse global audience today. My name is Steve Cadigan, and I'm a co-founder here in Silicon Valley of ISDI Digital University. And I've got a brief presentation for you today around careers in the digital era. And I'm thrilled that you're taking time out of your busy schedules to join. And so before we get started, I just want to familiarize you with the platform that we're using, GoToWebinar. I'm sure many of you have used it before. But we have a feature, if you have any questions at any time, that you should feel free to go ahead and enter. It's just a chat box. I'm going to go pretty quickly through the presentation, and then I will leave plenty of time at the end to go through a bunch of questions that you may have. But hopefully what we'll be able to do over the course of the next half hour or so, I've got about 30 minutes of material, is really just generate some ideas and some thoughts around a topic that has great relevance and something that I'm very excited to share with you today around what I see is just a dramatic shift that's happening in the world of jobs, in the world of careers, and how we think about work. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, I'm thrilled to have you here. Just a little bit about my background. So I am one of the co-founders, along with my partner Amir Meshkuri of ISDI Digital University right here in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'll tell you a little bit more about the school, but in terms of my background, I've been working in the talent space for nearly 30 years now. I've been working in the fashion business, insurance business, the semiconductor industry, the wholesale retail networking, the video game industry, the networking industry, and also in the social network industry, actually professional networking industry. And I've had a really great opportunity over the course of my career to do an enormous amount of recruiting, an enormous amount of job placement, and organizational development, if you will. And one thing that I've been able to do over those years is be able to spot patterns and trends. And I think today we're really at a very fascinating inflection point when it comes to how we all think about work and how we think about careers. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about what we all see in the press today is an enormous amount of attention on this notion of robots and artificial intelligence. And I think we hear in the press, on television, lots of stories around gloom and doom, that the robots and artificial intelligence are going to replace so many jobs and so many careers. And I think that's unfair from my perspective, because what I've been seeing in the last 30 years of my career is that as the technology proliferates and as we get more sophisticated with how we can leverage technology in the workplace, more new, exciting, and challenging career options are being made available to people. So, and I believe not only are there different kinds of roles being created because of technology, but I think there's so many different ways that we can find what we love to do in our work better than at any point in the history of work. I mean, if you think about that and you step back and you think about work today and making choices around where we want to work or what we want to do, the first profound change that we've seen in the last 10 years especially is that we have more visibility to opportunity in the world than we've ever had before. We have more knowledge and more intelligence around different kinds of work that we never knew were possible before. When I was a child and you were asked by your grandparents during the holidays, so, Steve, what do you want to do when you grow up? The de facto fallback position was, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, I want to be a teacher, something really simple. And today we have a visibility and a window, thanks to technology and sites like LinkedIn, for example, to be able to see millions and millions of different kinds of ways that we can find engaging work and to make an impact in our own careers. And I think that's a pretty exciting thing. So I don't buy into this whole notion of robots and technology replacing jobs as much as I buy into the notion that technology is creating so many new kinds of experiences and challenges and career choices that we've never had before. But while we are seeing this transition into the implementation of technology in the workspace, we're also seeing some really interesting trends in the workforce. For example, tenure. On a global level, most human capital research organizations today are reporting that the average time people stay with a company is shrinking significantly. In fact, McKinsey recently reported that most millennials by the age of 40 will have had 11 different roles in 11 different organizations. So now that's pretty dramatic. And if you do the math on that, that's going to be an average of almost 2 years per company that they're projecting people are going to be working in an organization. Now that's a pretty profound trend that has many, many implications. A few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to speak to about 400 CEOs right here in the heart of Silicon Valley. And at the beginning of my presentation, I asked a show of hands. I said, how many of you in your organizations today have people staying longer today than they were 2 or 3 years ago? And only in a room of 400 CEOs, I think I had 4 hands go up. And I jokingly said that those companies probably weren't founded except only a year ago. So they don't really have the history to be able to track that. But think about that for a second. Every organization in that room, even right here in the heart of Silicon Valley, people are not staying in their organizations as long as they used to. And so if you think about that, I mean, what does that say? You could draw lots of conclusions from that. But this is another great reality that we deal with today is we have a lot more data to be able to assess what's really happening. And we also are able to ask people, why are you leaving? Why are you leaving companies faster than you may have done in the past? And what we're finding is that people are intrigued by the visibility to seeing so many new choices that they have, that they are making changes. People are approaching work and thinking about work differently. And we're seeing a big growth in the amount of people that are moving not in terms of to building long-term career paths, but more short cycle opportunities, roles that we call temporary or we call contractors. That demographic is growing a lot. In the United States this year, every month they publish what's called the jobs report. And the jobs report tracks how many new people are added to payrolls and organizations and how many people have dropped off. And they take a look at that by industry, by geography, and they try to get a sense of, are we seeing growth or are we seeing a shrinking or are we seeing some kind of a recession? And what they've not tracked for years is how many independent workers are out there. They're not tracking people who have roles and income from the gig economy. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a different U.S. government agency, did this year finally start tracking how many people are in this contractor universe where they don't work for a company, they're independent, but they also contract out through lots of different organizations. And that number has grown in just 1 year by 3 million people. And that's a significant number when you take a look at the size of the workforce in the United States. Another trend that we're seeing is people are much more loyal and excited by work than necessarily being drawn to a specific company. And if they are drawn to a company, they're not drawn necessarily to the company with the expectation that they're going to stay there for an extended period of time. They're drawn by the project work or the people that they're going to be working with. And people I'm seeing are increasingly looking at their work more as putting together a series of adventures in different organizations than they are looking to build a long linear career path. And I'm only seeing that trend continue, not just in the US, but above and beyond. The second trend that I'm noticing right now, which is very powerful, is this trend to how value is created inside an organization. And it's moving from the internal to the external. In the old days, and still today in many organizations, a lot of the value in an organization is built by the employees themselves. They are coming up with new intellectual property. They are coming up with innovations and ideas that are breakthrough and that have value. And that is something that's being marketed to consumers. It's something as simple as we're going to create a piece of clothing and we're going to go sell that. Okay, that's a simple model. Everyone can understand the retail model. But today, with the advent of technologies and platforms, there are more opportunities for that value to be created outside a company. Let's take a look at Airbnb, for example. The value that Airbnb delivers is not a product that they make inside the offices of Airbnb. Airbnb employees are not creating the rooms around the world or the houses that people are renting. That value creation is they built a platform so other people can leverage the platform to make income. And that's a fascinating shift when you think about where the value of a company is being built. It's not on the inside, it's on the outside. And for those of us who are on the outside, that's wonderful. We can now make money in more ways today outside of a job than ever before. And that's a very simple way of defining this new gig economy. I have 3 young boys and they love YouTube. And if I let them, they probably would be on YouTube about 10 hours a day. That's not happening right now, and I'm not very popular in my house because of it. But listen, my kids are 10 and 14 years old, and they watch YouTube and find people who produce videos that are of interest to them, and then they look at how many followers they have, and they have several followers who have built a following in the millions, and they're seeing that these people are doing something fun and they're making money doing it. And one person in particular makes a few $100,000 a year by going to various sports facilities around the country and just filming, being present at a sports game and doing it in a very humorous and fun way. But think about it today. People have more ways of making income, whether it's selling something on a Craigslist or doing a temporary driving role with a company like Uber or Lyft, producing some music and selling it through a portal like SoundCloud. If you have a car that you're not using, you can actually start renting your car to other users. Or if you wanted to build a seminar and sell that seminar on a platform like lynda.com, you can do that. And this is a really interesting trend as the gig economy continues to grow, that there are more and more ways that people can earn an income than working for a job and working for a company as we traditionally have. And I'm fascinated to see in my own family how my kids are going to translate their thinking around how to build value and how to make a living off of something like YouTube. And that's the first place they're already seeing and thinking about it. It's going to be fascinating to see how that continues and how they think about working and having a job if they're already having role models today who can build an income and create an interesting experience for themselves out of the standard working for a corporation. So what I'm seeing when it comes to careers in the digital age is something very, very different than what we've seen in years past. And I'm calling this shift the move from employee as an employee working for an employer to employee becoming a value creator. I can have a job in an organization, I can be an entrepreneur, and I can do all of the above at the same time. One of the futurists thinking about the future of work that I read recently said, when their father worked, their father had one job his entire life. When he's talking, he was probably in his 50s. When he's talking, he said he's probably had around 5 jobs in his life, and he'll probably have 8 by the time he retires. And he said when he thinks about his children, he believes that his children will probably have about 8 jobs at the same time. And that's very possible today, given the proliferation of opportunities, especially as delivered by some of the social platforms that I showed you on an earlier slide. So it's just really interesting, when you think about how do I equip myself for the future and how do I best position my career in a way that doesn't involve having a job, doesn't involve having something like my parents had or my grandparents had. How do I best set myself up to be successful and leverage the fruit of this new digital economy? Because as I started in the beginning of the presentation talking about, I think we hear more about why you should be afraid in the digital economy because robots and artificial intelligence are coming, but we don't hear a lot around, well, what does this really mean for me, for work? And should I be secure or should I be insecure around what's coming in the future and how fast things are changing? Because the only thing we know about the future is it's going to be very different. whatever skills I can tell you are important for you to develop today, I can almost be positive that most of those are going to be different 10 years from now. So what we're really talking about is a universe where we have to equip ourselves with lots of change. We have to set all of ourselves up to be able to be fluent in our career path. And at the same time, we want to build an expertise at something that we love doing. We also need to be prepared that we may be taking that expertise and having it express itself in very different ways. And that freedom is exciting, but for people who are not millennials, people who are Gen X or baby boomers, that can be pretty nerve-wracking and pretty challenging. But if I think about what does this all mean, and what does it all mean to you as you think about your own career and what's possible, I think I would start thinking in terms that careers are no longer going to be a straight line or a linear path. They're going to be a series of different challenges, probably in lots of different organizations, and that your power, the currency that you're going to deliver, is going to be critically driven by the vitality of your network. And this is one of the bedrocks of ISDI and ISDI's Digital University's broader community, is that in our schools, not only are we delivering the knowledge of what's needed to succeed in the economy today and tomorrow, but even more important than that, we're delivering a network of people and ideas that you're going to have access to for the rest of your career. And that's one of the different approaches that we take when we think about education and why we decided to found ISDI and why ISDI was founded many years ago in Europe. But this bedrock of the currency and the value of connectedness. I had a great opportunity when I was at LinkedIn several years ago to sit 2 doors down from the founder and chairman of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman. And Reid said one time, what he was thinking about. He was asked, what are the most important skills that you're seeing of the worker in the future, and how are you seeing work change and the difference being made? And it was asked in the spirit of this very frenetic job space that we're seeing, where there's lots of changes and people are no longer staying with organizations very much. What does it all mean? And he's one of the brightest minds when it comes to forecasting what's happening in the future. And Reid's answers really stuck with me for years, because what he said was, today it's more, who you know is more important than what you know. Because what you know is almost impossible to know everything that you need to know. Things are changing so fast. We have access to so much information. So if you have resources and people and mentors and coaches and connections that you can tap and call and ask a question when you're facing something new and something different, that's powerful. That's how we're going to navigate this incredibly busy universe of data and information, is through connections and through networks. And that's a really powerful component, I think, of success in the future, is how vibrant and vital your network is. And I think what it means to careers, when I think about a resume, or what we call it internationally, what we call a CV, a curriculum vitae, or when we think about a LinkedIn profile, what I think is going to be changing in these profiles is that, similar to the movie industry, we're going to speak and show more about what we've done in certain companies than necessarily where we've worked. And the IMDB, which is the Motion Picture Association's model of tracking what people worked on what films and exactly what role that they did, I see this as something that's going to be developing over time, that we're going to see all of us have much greater detail around exactly what we've been working on, so that other people can find us and connect with us and be able to leverage that knowledge for their own benefit. So I think that the future, as I see it, incredibly bright. You're going to have so much more choice. You already do, and you're only going to have more choice. You're likely going to be holding multiple roles. I'm not just saying from one role to the next, but multiple roles at the same time, that we're going to be doing lots of different things. And we're going to have a massively increased diversity of experiences and adventures, much broader than we've ever had before. So to give you an example, in the space that I've worked in most of my career, it's the talent space. What's happened in the talent space in the last 5 years is that there's been a massive shift and an increase in two big areas. One is in employer branding, and the other one is in measurement and data and analytics. That we have more tools, more systems, and more platforms to be able to measure human performance and capture it. And on the branding side, we have many more channels to be able to have our employees express their work experience, have many more ways of sharing what engagement levels are around the world than we've ever had before. And that's a massive shift just in the discipline of human resources. And those are just two areas. And there are many more. So for people in my field and my profession who've grown up in the domain of human resources, just those two areas are fundamentally shifting. What does it mean to be a human resources professional in the future? I need to have these new skills. I need to understand what networks mean. I need to understand what brand means and how that plays out in many of the social networks that are out there and professional networks and so forth. But the person who has been on a linear career path, this is going to feel very uncomfortable and very nerve-wracking. But for someone who's coming out like my kids are right now and saying, wow, I'm going to do lots of different things and I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it, I think the future is really bright. But we're going to have to adapt to this. We're going to have to accept some of the contradictions that it feels like in this environment where, sure, there's a lot of freedom, but there's a lot of uncertainty around that where the future is growing. And I think this is one of the realities of building a career in the future right now, is that so much more is uncertain, but so much more opportunity is there than ever before. And that's this contradiction that we're going to just have to live with. This contradiction. It's pretty exciting, but it's pretty uncomfortable at the same time. Many years ago, when I was in graduate school, I had a professor who recommended that we read this book called Chaos Theory. And it was written by a woman named Meg Wheatley. And she was the pioneer of this concept of chaos theory. And chaos theory comes out of science, but she was applying this theory to organizations. And one of the things that chaos creates in nature is energy. Chaos is one of the greatest conductors of energy. So I'm sure many of you have heard, like, oh, working in a startup, it's pure chaos. Chaos is actually not always a bad thing. And you want to harness some of that and bring some sense out of it. And you don't want everything to be chaos all the time. Otherwise, people are literally going to be massively stressed out. But a certain amount of uncertainty creates energy that's very powerful. And so, when we think about this contradiction that we're living with right now of lots of uncertainty, but lots of opportunity, getting comfortable with that contradiction, I think, is a starting point. So let me just sort of move towards closing out some of the key points that I have for you today around, answering this question now. Like, what does it mean what do I need to do to set myself up to be as valuable as I possibly can be to me and the people in my life, to make a big impact in the future, to make a meaningful contribution, whether it's on my own in my own company, or to make a meaningful contribution in society, wherever, if I'm working for a for-profit or nonprofit. What do I need to do? So I already covered a couple of things, and that is, be as current as you possibly can be on as much of the latest trends and technologies as you can be, and be really investing as much, if not more time, in the vitality of your network. It's through that network where you're going to find lots of this new information and new skills and experiences that are going to equip you. Stay current, stay active. And I think we have more tools and platforms to allow us to do that. Bring to the table a growth mindset, an openness to try things, to recover quickly, to fail fast, if you will. It's impossible to know everything. And I think we're moving to a place right now where companies are looking for people who are versatile and adaptable and can change, and they bring a growth mindset and they think about problems using design thinking principles. These are very, very important. And this, again, going back to ISDI Digital University, I mean, these elements are at the core of how we think about delivering people to the future in ways that they can be most impactful in whatever path it is that they're deciding to go into. And so what does that look like, Steve? Like, what are you talking about? Like, everyone says versatile and adaptable. What that means is that, you know, whether you become comfortable working on, you know, projects that have a short life cycle, projects that have a long life cycle, whether you're working on tools and technology that may be different but towards the same end game, you need to be comfortable and ready to be able to adapt to new things and to try new things out, to learn quickly, to be a great communicator, and to develop lessons from some of those learnings and apply them in new ways. Okay, I could probably give a week-long seminar on each one of these points on this slide. So I don't want to skip it too fast, but I do want to say that these elements are what, you know, and investing in these and understanding what these really mean are going to be paying you massive dividends in your career as you think about setting yourself up for success and being able to experience finding that place. And this is what, you know, I call career nirvana, when you are in that sweet spot of doing what you love with people that make your heart sing, and you're in a place where you feel like you're making a difference in the lives of other people and in your own life as well. And, you know, we're never going to always get that right. I think life is a series of experiences that help us understand ourselves more and more and more from one experience to the next around, do I like working in a high pressure environment? Do I like working in a low pressure environment? Do I like working on fast deadlines, long deadlines? Do I like working in a busy environment? Do I like working in a quiet environment? Do I like working with a large group of people, with a small group of people? Do I like working with a boss who's a loud screamer, or do I like working when I'm the boss and I'm a loud screamer? I mean, we have to understand these things more and more about ourselves over time. And from choosing a new experience here and a new experience there, we get closer to including all those elements that we learn about ourselves that make our hearts sing. And this is one of the interesting elements when I think about students out of school, is that there's so much to learn in the working world that is impossible to know in the confines of a university, a traditional university setting. It's really impossible until you are out there in the world yourself, experimenting and trying and learning about the kinds of settings that you love to work in, that you learn the most in, that you feel you're making the biggest contribution. And that's why I think, you know, trying new experiences and new organizations and new places is super valuable and super handy. Okay, so when I think about what does a digital talent superstar look like, I don't see a robot. I see someone who can really bring these elements to bear, learning about themselves and really being able to find ways that they can make a difference more so than ever before. And so I want to thank you. That's the core part of what I wanted to deliver when I think about careers in the digital era. Very different, very exciting, very scary, but also why would you want it any other way right now? And so I just want to close out and tell you a little bit more about ISDI Digital University. And again, thank you for spending a half hour or so with us today. As I think about the future of careers, I'm here with ISDI because I think ISDI can prepare you better than anything else that you can find out there. Not only do we have an amazing philosophy around education, not only are we a pioneer and no one else is doing what we're doing, but we have so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people who are part of the ISDI community right now. And we want to be able to provide the knowledge and the network to be able to embrace a really exciting digital future. Those of you that are interested, we are in the exciting phase of preparing to launch our first online digital master's degree here, delivered through our campus in Silicon Valley. If you'd like more information, we're not hard to find. Some of the web links are here. But our online master's program is going to be engaging. It's going to be interesting. Our students will be paired into groups. You'll all have mentors. And we're going to be working on solving real world challenges and applying the knowledge, and also building our network as we go. We really think we've got a one-of-a-kind, very, very special situation here for people to take advantage of. And I strongly encourage you to check it out and come consider being part of the ISDI family. If you'd like to get in touch with me, here's my email address. If you'd like to talk to some members of my team around playing around and seeing if this is something that would work for you, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to talk to you. I'd also love to hear if you have just thoughts on what you heard today, even if you have like different ideas or you want to challenge some of my assumptions with this. I learn from students as much as I teach from students. But we really believe when we think about the future of the digital world, I mean, this is what we have here, the Masters of Internet Business. This really is the MBA for a digital world. And we're going to equip you from start to finish in this 9-month intensive master's program with everything that you need to know to set you up to be successful in business, whether it's on your own or with another one, and face a lot of the challenges and changes that industry is presenting us today. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. If you have any in the chat box, please list them there, and I'll be happy to answer them here. If you've got to get on with your day, I wish you a great day, a great evening, a great morning, and I want to thank you very much for your time. So I am going to look very distracted as I look down to the chat box, which is the lower part of my screen, and see if there's any questions. Okay, so when does the program start? Our online master starts the 31st of January, and it's going to be ending around the middle of November. We do take time off for some of the big holidays, but that's the general time frame. Okay. Okay. Let's see. We've got another question here. Okay, so one of the questions came in. It's a great question. So Steve, given what you said around tenure and how relatively short people may be working in organizations, is it your belief that people can still make a meaningful impact in organizations? And I think the answer is absolutely. I think if we look at careers in bygone years, I think there was a lot of time spent on ramp up and learning how things work. And today, I think people hit the ground running, and there's less ramp up time, and there's more immediate immersion and impact opportunity than ever before. I think that the training curve, and this isn't true for every career, okay, but I think most of them, I think the ramp up time is very short, and the cycles and the development and the impact opportunities are much greater. So that's why I think, yes, and even in stints where people have that are not as long as they used to be, 2-3 years in an organization, I think you can make a super big impact. That's a great question. All right, any other questions from the audience? Just taking a look here. All right. Okay. All right, great question we've got coming in here around the do I believe that the trend of that I'm seeing with careers does have portability in different cultures? I mean, in different countries. Generally, and this comes in from Laura. Generally, yes, I do. I think it may express itself differently. I mean, I don't think I can say this is the way it is everywhere, all the time, in every industries, in every culture, and every geography. But I think I'm speaking at a macro trend. Yes, this is what I'm seeing. I believe people are staying in organizations shorter. I believe people are looking for immediate, I want to get something out of this opportunity in an organization, and I want to deliver something to an organization. I was at a holiday party last night, and one of the people I met was a student who was joining the holiday party, and or a prospective student for our school, and she was explaining that in the interview process, okay, of her interviewing with a company that she joined recently, that she was mainly interested in how fast she was going to be able to learn new things and be able to meet different people in her organization. That was a very powerful part of why she decided to choose to go to the company that she chose. And for me, that wasn't a surprise. But was interesting was that, in the old days, I think people would interview feeling they had to answer questions and impress the person who was looking to hire them. And whereas today, I think a lot of times candidates are feeling like, hey, I got a lot of choice here. And I want to make sure if I'm going to work for you, that I'm going to get a lot of value from that. Okay, so that's a great question. Thank you. All right, here's a question coming in from Mary. Is there a particular skill that you would recommend we work on moving forward, especially for those of us who are around before the digital age? Well, Mary, welcome to the club. There are many like you, like me, that we call them digital immigrants. And I think, the most important skill, and this is, it may sound cliche, but becoming an open system, becoming someone who is who's open to learning and adapting is probably the most important skill that you can have. Being fluent on using new kinds of tools and quickly being able to adjust and adapt to different technologies at a high level, very important. How people communicate is going through a revolution. I think there's some people that say, wow, is the generation that's just texting going to lose the art of verbal communication and unstructured conversation? And I don't know that we know the answer to that question, but I do think this ability to be versatile and adaptable is what every organization is looking for today. Here, if you're a leader or on the executive team in a major organization, think about this. Think about, no matter what industry you're in, you know that you could be under attack by some technology. Okay, and I'll give you the example. Even at LinkedIn, when I was at LinkedIn, the chairman Reed was asked one time, who's your biggest competition? Who worries you the most? You're this high-flying new Silicon Valley startup. Who worries you the most, and what worries you the most? And his answer, I think, sets up the answer that I want to give to your question, which is, he said, the biggest competitor that I worry about the most is the company that hasn't been invented yet. So if you are an executive and you don't know what the future holds, but you do know you're going to have competition that you don't expect, think about the taxi industry. Think about with Uber. Think about the hotel industry. Think about one of the biggest, most successful companies in the world. When we were younger, Kodak, film company, they're gone now. They're gone because they didn't bet on digital photography, but they owned it, and they're gone now. So no matter what industry you're in today, you want people that are going to be able to help you adapt when the inevitable competition and new paradigm threat is going to be entering in. You need to have a workforce that can change course. And so that's why I say, what skill is it that's most important? The skill of being able to learn new things and to be able to adapt quickly is going to serve you extremely, extremely well. Okay, another question coming in from Crizel. Okay, given that it's a lot more about who you know than what you know, how do you get into an opportunity at a company where you may not know anyone? Well, that's a great question, because there's probably tons of opportunities out there that we might be interested in, and we don't know somebody there. Okay, so the best way to answer this question is to start from a point of this. Your network's important, not just because someone you know may be in a company that may want to hire someone like you, but if someone you know may know someone else at a company that you may not know anyone, and this is the second degree network and the third degree network, this is why it's important. Okay, and I think, and also in answering this question, Crizel, I think it's incumbent on us to invest the time to let people know about what is interesting to us. And this is one of the things, I personally try to have at least 3 to 5 conversations a week with people that I haven't talked to the week before. Just checking in on, How are you doing? What are you working on? What are you seeing? Here's what I'm doing. Here's what's important to me right now. Here's things that I'm looking to do. Here's some answers I'm looking to solve for in my universe. And that just plants a seed that's only, I believe, going to pay dividends. But I wouldn't be too nervous around trying to find opportunities in companies where we may not know someone. And again, as I referenced earlier, I think the more adaptable and more versatile you are, and the more aware you are of your own circumstances, I think you're going to see opportunities beyond just a new job or a new company, that there are lots of different ways to maybe do some advisory work, maybe do some consulting work, maybe to do some project work that's not just a job, and get you to meet other people. I will say this though, stepping back, because that's a really great question. The the capability of you being in a company or an organization or with a group of people who are highly networked themselves is very, very important. If you think about, if you have a choice between 2 organizations or 3 or 5 organizations around where you're going to work, and generally there's puts and takes, but they're pretty close in terms of what kind of rewards, what kind of compensation you're going to get, how interesting the work is. What I would then significantly base my decision around is which of those organizations has people that know a lot of people in lots of other places. And I would want to be in that setting, because the more I know people who have a greater network than me, the greater my network becomes, if that makes sense, right? And I'm not talking, and this is the thing I think sometimes people fail to appreciate. When I'm talking about a network, sometimes people are visualizing a cocktail party. That's not what I'm thinking about a network. These are people that love to discuss ideas and trade information that can be really, really helpful. And so that's what I think is very powerful, is thinking about how do I invest in those conversations? Because this is really like a career conversation. You can have 3 to 5 career conversations a week, and so forth. That just multiplies, and it's going to continue to grow. All right. So great question. Probably we could debate that one for a long time, but thanks, Crizel. That was a really good one. Okay. Question came in around the name of the book by Meg Wheatley is the name of the author, Nyan. And that one, the title is Chaos Theory. And I think she's got another one, Leadership in Chaos Theory. I've actually got an extra copy of that, Nyan, so I can loan it to you if you're interested in. Okay. All right. Question came in from Alessandra. Will multidisciplinary profiles be more required in the future than today? I think the answer, Alessandra, is it already is, I believe. I think, and I don't know that it's a requirement, but it's definitely going to be an advantage. The more that you have, the more multidisciplinary experience that you can bring to bear. And let's step back and I'm going to answer this in a very, very simplistic way. We are seeing merging of lots of different businesses coming together, and the way technology is pulling all that together. The more experience you have in different verticals, in different disciplines, I think the more value you're going to be able to bring. It used to be that, if you're a finance person, you're always going to be a finance person. Well, a finance person today could say, no, I want to go into fintech, and maybe I want to get involved into blockchain, and maybe I want to get involved into something different. I don't want to do just finance the way I did it before. And I can see on LinkedIn that the people who did finance the way I've done it have gone into 30, 40, 50 different pathways. And we can see that right now. That's one thing that I would strong. If any of you is sitting in a place where you're kind of like, gosh, it's the end of the year, I'm thinking I want to do something different in 2018 and beyond. This is a great time of year to sit back. One of the things that I love to do any time of the year, but especially around the end of the year, is I try to go find people like me, people that are doing something similar to me, and then I go find where they've been, and I go find where they've gone, and I try to see, that's interesting. I wonder. I always will run into profiles and backgrounds of people that made different pathway choices than mine, and I'm always curious about that. And sometimes, if I'm brave enough, I'll reach out to people I don't even know and say, "Hey, I'm Steve. I saw your background. How did you make that choice, or why did you make that move?" And this is really interesting to me, and it just opens up my mind of what's possible. And I strongly encourage you, if you're thinking you want to do something different and you're not sure what that is, that's okay. As I said, we got to embrace the contradiction of freedom and complexity, and go explore. We have the more ability to explore. And by the way, there's nothing people like talking more about than their own experiences. You get someone to open up very quickly and say, "Hey, why did you make the choices you made? And what do you like about it? And how's it coming in? And how's it played out for you?" Very, very helpful. Okay, another question came in here. Wow, the questions are firing in, and we've got most of the attendees still on the line. This is awesome. All right, Steve, you mentioned you have children. What skills do you encourage them to learn, and what would you recommend in college? The main skill I teach them to learn is everything I say is the law. No. What I try to do with my kids is really have them, and this is the thing I'm worried about the most, and it's probably because I'm an extrovert, but I really want to, with them, to really build out the art of being intellectually curious and trying to understand, why things are the way they are, or why did that company do this, or why did someone make the choice that they did that, or why is the country's culture different over here than it is over here? And so one of the things that I'm constantly doing to my boys is I'm asking them questions, just questions about this or questions about that, or why do you think that person on television did that, or why do you think your teacher asked you that question, just to try to spur the active mind to think about it. But I'm also using my kids, that probably I learn as much from my kids as they may learn from me, and they're still young enough that I'm somewhat cool in their eyes, and I think that those days are gone. But I'm amazed. They come home, they have all of them are using technology to do homework. One of the schools that my kids are in, the kids produce a news broadcast once a week that's sent to me and their mother, telling about what they learned that week. So they're actually doing a production. So I think it's what I'm pleased with the schools where my kids are, and I try to emphasize at home, is just the familiarization to leverage technology to tell a story in a different way. So that's what I'm doing here in the Cadigan household. And by the way, you see all those books? I like them to read a lot. That's really, we designate at least an hour a day after school where they do reading. So super important, I believe. Okay, what qualifications do you believe are necessary for the future to pursue a career in the digital age? Okay, and this comes in from Raul. Raul, this is the whole point of what I'm trying to talk about today, is that I don't know that there is a specific language or a specific kind of technology that is going to make you more valuable in the digital age than another. I think understanding the fluency of how technology is working, being able to see the whole picture, and being able to understand why technology is evolving the way it is. Like, why are social networks the way they are? How does search work on Google? How is Facebook marketing, how is that different than LinkedIn marketing? I think being able to understand the universe, of digital business is more important than a specific trait, if that makes sense. Again, I'm a sort of a macro thinker, and I think this is a big, huge part of what we're offering with ISDI Digital University, and it's a huge point behind what we're trying to equip, which is there are many schools out there today where you can go and take a micro nano course and go very deep on something. And there's merit to that. We all face these points in our lives where we say, I want to know everything about this little thing. But what we're trying to do with ISDI is give you the full picture, so that wherever you go in the digital world, I understand mobile, I understand user experience, I understand social networks, I understand content. I understand design thinking. I understand digital transformation, the whole thing, because all that universe is going to shift around, and what's more important today could be, lesser important tomorrow. But being able to understand that universe is going to allow you to grow and change as the universe changes, if that makes sense. Okay, another question came in here from Daniel. Steve, you mentioned the need for a robust network. Starting to build a network, but just adding names to LinkedIn has been of questionable value. How do you really know these contacts once introduced? Feels like asking for help to move versus networking. Is there a website or additional information needed to introduce yourself? Okay, so let's not. First, I want to answer the question. I get this a lot, having worked at LinkedIn for some very formative years. Being connected to someone on LinkedIn doesn't necessarily mean that they are a valuable member of your network. Okay, and some people, everyone uses LinkedIn differently. And when I think of networking, I don't think of LinkedIn. I think that that's an enabler, but that's not the core of it. I think of people that I know, people that I trust, people who I respect, and I think that is something that over time just naturally grows if you're going from different teams and different organizations and different places, whether it's in your community, in your school, in your company, or from one company to the next. I mean, there's a lot of people that we all have in our networks. I will tell you, the two biggest jobs that I've had in my career, one of them came from a kid's birthday party. Okay, I was at a kid's birthday party and I met someone there, and I ran into them at a restaurant by accident a few months later, and that led to a conversation thread from the first time I met them to the second time I met them that led me to get the interview at LinkedIn that got me that job. It was a kid's birthday party. Okay, I wasn't looking to go to a kid's birthday party because I wanted to network. I was bored. My kids were running around at this kid's party, and I wanted to meet some of the other parents, and they were bored too. And that's where how that opportunity came from. I'm not kidding you. And so I think what it means to you and your comfort level with that is really your choice. Okay, but I do think that being thoughtful about that these aren't just people I know, and investing some time to get to know people and is probably one of the best investments that you could make. There is a place that I would highly recommend. If this is something that you want to explore some more, there's a woman that I know who started a company called The Personal Boardroom, and her name is Zella King, Zella King. She lives in the UK. She has an organization called The Personal Boardroom. And what I love about what Zella's done is she's created this concept that we should all think of ourselves as the way a corporation does. And most corporations have a board of directors. And that board of directors is composed of people that bring very different skill sets to the table. People that understand, some people understand legal, some people understand finance, some people understand marketing, some people understand that sector, some people understand international. Whatever that organization needs, they should be having people that are bringing new and diverse experiences to the table. Similarly, we as individuals, she believes, and Zella is, she's got a website and all that, and I think she's got a freemium model out there now. But I love her model, which says you should have someone in your network that challenges you, that pushes you. You should have someone in your network that's not in a company that you work from, that sees the world differently. You should have someone there whose shoulder you can cry on when your chips are down. You should have someone who's there when you're really high to sort of really, challenge you. You should have someone who, can offer you completely different insights. But we should surround ourselves. And she's got, I think there's like 9 to 12 different profiles of people that she says you should have someone like this in your own personal boardroom. And I will tell you, for lots of people that I know in my network, this is something I try to do for our students as well. I try to offer, a different point of view around whatever the challenges that they're experiencing or that they want to explore in their career. And I think we all like to do that. And, it's kind of like a pay it forward notion. So with that, I want to say it's been a real thrill to be able to present to you through this new medium and GoToMeeting. We are ISDI Digital University. I'm Steve Cadigan, one of the co-founders. I really would love to tell you more about the school, as would any of our academic advisors. I'm going to give you let's see, go back to the screen here and show you again. This is how you can contact me, and this is how you can get a hold of one of our advisors. And if you want to get more information on the university, here are the ways you can do that. We've got a wonderful blog flow that's going on right now called the 12 Days of ISDI. And that's a great way for you to learn about our different academic advisors and members of the ISDI family, because we have some really great questions that we're asking them and some really great topics that they're talking about, including yours truly, talking about some crazy ideas around interviewing and job seeking. So again, I really want to thank you for taking the time for joining us today. Have a fantastic holiday. This is the best time of the year to step back, take a breath, think about your life and what's in front of you, where you want to be, the people you want to be with. Do you like your work-life balance? Do you like the impact you're making? Do you like the persons that you're working around, the person you're working for? Is the compensation you have working for you? I mean, there's so many things. It's great to step back and take stock and say, am I as fit as I want to be? Am I exercising enough? Do I like my work commute? And think about, if you're not where you want to be, take action to change that. You can take it. You can take that first step. And I hope some of the things I talked about today inspire you to be able to take that first step. Thank you so much. And I'll sign off from here. Bye-bye.